Drag you over here, and the good news is we do not have to worry about the camera. We just have to worry about the cicadas, who are singing the song of their people. I'm trying out a new show format where things are much less scripted, but much more timely, and I've wanted to do this for a while to keep some semblance of an upload train coming. And the main idea here is that as I see things in the music community, especially the YouTube music community, I kind of share my thoughts on what is going on, what I've seen, and what I've heard. And although as of this recording, his video was posted more than a week ago, what's been on my mind is Rick Beato's video of Isn't This Just Stealing, where he brings up interpolation and how it's been happening in pop music in the past few years. In particular, he used Dua Lipa as the main example. I think he also brought up Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, and how it seems to be happening more often and how these songwriters are getting no credit for the interpolation that is happening. Something I have to admit is that Rick's specialty is largely rock music of the late 20th century, and while I don't mean to stereotype, that might be why some of his takes on more modern genres, especially genres dependent on electronic production, seem to lack a certain perspective. For example, given his experience, I feel like he should have a better understanding of interpolation and its history. There was also a point in another video where he struggled to understand the backing beat of a reggaeton track, which is largely based on Latin American music traditions and the dembow beat. That said, he did give us something to chew on, and he has a point. Interpolation can be artistically dangerous if it's not used properly. But what was more concerning was some of the comments in his video. A lot of the commenters seem to be saying that interpolation in and of itself is outright theft. And while it can be, it's not. Interpolation is a tool, and tools can be used correctly or incorrectly. I mean, hammers can break windows, but you still wouldn't leave the house without one in your toolbox. So, just to kind of rewind, I've talked about interpolation quite a bit in one of my previous videos. I'll try to post the link in the description. But to kind of sum it up, hip-hop and electronic music, valid genres of music, valid styles of music, they would not exist without interpolation. It's just one of the tools that the early progenitors of hip-hop and rap music had. They heavily sampled other works. Or just heavily played other works. And you go back even further, jazz musicians interpolate frequently. The most famous recording of April in Paris has an interpolation of Pop Goes the Weasel in it. It's brief, but it's good, it's funny, it adds to the taste of the song, it's a bit of musical humor. Ella Fitzgerald is probably one of the greatest vocalists who have ever lived, and she can be frequently heard interpolating other songs in her music whenever she's improvising. I don't think anybody's gonna call her a thief. I don't think anybody's gonna call her a hack. And while we're still on the topic of jazz, when we got into the bebop era, that's when you saw a rise in popularity of contrafacts, where composers would take pre-existing chord structures and put a new melody over them. While that did get a bit annoying, and maybe that's just an exposure problem, because when I was teaching bebop jazz, I had to listen to a lot of contrafacts, and that just got old to me really quickly. While they did get kind of annoying, I don't think anybody's gonna call them thieves. The jazz geniuses, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, and of course we've rewound even further with cantus firmus and certain chord structures that composers would use in the centuries prior to modern music being made. So people can use sampling or interpolation to make very beautiful things. In fact, if I can touch back onto the rock music connection, a lot of rock musicians, very good, very talented rock musicians, started out a lot of times by either covering songs or singing songs that other composers have written for them. So taking someone else's work and putting a new twist on it is nothing new in the music scene. So again, interpolation and sampling aren't bad things, they're tools that can be used well or can be used poorly. I think it's a problem that Dua Lipa is blatantly interpolating this often in some of her best known hits. For example, almost a decade ago, I remember complaining that I felt like Pitbull was unoriginal because he seldom had a pop hit that wasn't heavily sampling another hit song or a song with more history to it. In response, a colleague of mine did say to listen to his Spanish music rather than his English language works. That is yet to happen, but I digress. And even one of the groups I listen to frequently, Scooter, the electronic music act out of Germany, they're a major part of electronic music history, have a lot of awesome songs that interpolate very heavily, or borrow very heavily from other musicians. And I kind of have to ask myself sometimes, do they cross the line with how much they interpolate? They have some awesome tracks. They also have at least 2 songs, both of which are on my hard drive, where it is pure interpolation. They're borrowing a melody and sometimes even lyrics from a popular song, and then also using a famous folk song throughout the track, and there's not a terrible lot of their own material in it. They do have many songs that have a healthy balance of interpolation or borrowing and their own material. Those songs did kind of flirt the line, so it does kind of make you scratch your head a little bit. I just feel like people in the comments are being too dismissive. And maybe it's because they just saw this video where pop musicians are being called out, and maybe tensions are kind of being frayed, and maybe I'm overreacting to what I see in those comments. But a reminder that some of the things that get called out in the music world are tools. A lot of things that get used in the art world are tools. Tools can be used correctly, and tools can be used incorrectly, and I just want to make sure we're not shooting them down too harshly and making certain means of being creative more taboo. If you like this, feel free to let me know. I'll keep experimenting with this and see if it gets me uploading more often. I also have another idea. I just kind of need to put it together. Not to mention, Cool Guy Johnson hates I'm still scripting, but I'm pretty sure I'm fairly close. Until next time, peace.